do not pay your management fund, the council can actually auction off your land unilaterally to actually force you to recover, force the recovery of the monies due to the management operation. Okay, much longer than
30 minutes.
Huh?
30 minutes.
Start
Yeah.
30 minutes. Okay. Just one final point I just want to say is I'll give you an example. I'll give you a final example. For those who are in KK, you have probably heard of a project here called Wisma Sabah. Wisma Sabah, which is near town, which is near Merdeka, Wisma Merdeka. It is one of the first buildings in Sabah to have subsidiary titles. It's actually a commercial building. There was one company from West Malaysia that was running some business in Wisma Sabah. Wisma Sabah is shop lots. Each shop lot is roughly about 600 square feet. So this particular company didn't do very well, and they didn't pay their contribution to the management fund. So, such that it accumulated until it came up to about 20,000 ringgit unpaid contribution to the management fund. But the business was doing badly. They decided to sell their unit, and then they managed to sell the unit and got their purchase price, and then they took the money, and the company was eventually wound up and deregistered. The purchaser who bought this unit from Wisma Sabah. He was very happy. He paid his purchase price. He moved in, and then he got a notice from the management corporation. Please pay up 20,000. He said, what? This 20,000 nothing to do with me, it's the previous owner. Okay? No. The law says this liability for the payment of the management fund is not personal to the owner. It runs with the unit. It's a liability which runs with the subsidiary title, with your parcel, and for which the limitation period is not applicable. There's no limitation period. So basically, when you buy a unit, which is a parcel with a subsidiary title, in addition to checking for assessment and annual rent, you must write to the MC to find out how much is the liability for unpaid management fund. Then you will actually deduct from the purchase price payable to the seller. Okay? In that particular case I mentioned, it went up to the High Court, and eventually the lawyer who did the S&P failed to do the search with the management corporation, and the legal firm ended up paying the unpaid management fund of about 20,000. So this one important aspect you should remember. Okay? I now move on very quickly now to, we've now finished with the land subsidiary title enactment. There are some questions on it. I will now look very quickly at the item 8 on your list, housing control licensing of developers enactment, and also the, yes. So, when people buy a house, it's one of the biggest events in their life. Because why? Houses are so expensive. And when you buy a dwelling house, sometimes you have no choice because you want to get married, you don't have a house, no girl wants you, or vice versa. So you got no choice. You have to go and get a property. And there's always, many ask people, sudah kahwin kah? Belum kahwin lah, belum ada rumah lagi. You know, so it is something which becomes like compulsory. But the house is so expensive. When you buy a house, you can probably just barely afford the down payment. Then you repay the loan, usually now 20 years, 30 years. Basically, your whole working lifetime is devoted to repaying for the loan. So if you get it wrong on the day you purchase the property, then you're really going to suffer. If you happen to actually sign an agreement with a crooked developer, then you're going to really suffer. So the government realized this, and the government passed a law which is on your list under item number 8, called the Housing Control and Licensing of Developers Enactment. This enactment only deals, and it's very important for you to remember, only deals with residential properties, not shops, not offices, only residential properties. So what it does is that it forces developers, if they want to build a residential development, they must be licensed. And in order to get the license, there are certain procedures they have to fulfill, which reduces the risk on purchasers. Okay, so they need a license, and then one of the hallmarks of this enactment are two things. Firstly, the sale and purchase agreement, which they sign up with the purchaser, if it's a residential house, it is compulsory, must follow the statutory format, which is provided in the rules, the 2008 rules made under this enactment. Okay, so for many of you, you have read sale and purchase agreement, which shows if it's for terrace houses, semi-detached, detached house, the sale and purchase agreement is called the Schedule G. If it's an apartment, it's called the Schedule H. So if you are struggling to remember, just remember G, ground, H, high rise. Okay, so now the sale and purchase agreement for residential properties is reduced to a statutory form. Okay, so what we have to do for this exam is probably just look at the housing rules, look at the enactment, just to see what are the requirements for licensing, what are the requirements for the developer to get a license. And then in the enactment, go to the part which tells what happened when the developer defaults, is not able to complete the project. What are the powers of the controller of housing? I think that's all what you need to know. Then look at the housing rules 2008 and look very quickly at Schedule G and Schedule H. Don't attempt to memorize it, but I think there is one question on this. So you must know what Schedule G is, Schedule H. These standard statutory sale and purchase agreements are actually drafted by Sabah Law Association, as it was then called. It was done by us. So these agreements are now drafted in a manner whereby all the variables, all the things which change, all the key information is found in the first 2 pages. So if you read the first 2 pages, you will actually know what you're purchasing. So that's the Schedule G and the Schedule H. This is what you need to know.